was very sophisticated. And if you're going to, compare it to the last January's attacks, Charlie Hebdo, attacks which at the time left the entire country reeling, led to an outpouring, a rallying of solidarity that the French Republic hadn't seen really in its recent modern history. It almost eclipses those events in terms of both the degree of violence and in the magnitude of horror. The death toll is far higher, but also the sophistication of the tactics. It seems from the little we do know, from what is beginning to be pieced together, we don't know the nationalities, we don't know the identities of those behind these attacks, but just from what we do know, it's very clear that they were sophisticated, and the fact that, as you mentioned, they were suicide bombers, that is absolutely unprecedented, a word that François Hollande used.
Well, it was, according to an anonymous source so far, because of course officials are not allowed to speak publicly about the ongoing investigation. The Syrian passport that was found on one of those suicide bombers who intervened at the very start of all this around 9 p.m. Just outside the Stade de France. Doug, the other big difference with January, is it not the way that this has been, the responsibility has been claimed? So that if you recast your mind back to the month of January, no one quite knew, were we dealing with lone wolves? Were we dealing with lone wolves who'd been inspired by Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula? And for a long time, the link remained mysterious. This, no bones about it, it's come directly from the Islamic State organization. Perfect French, perfect English, the detailed locations of where it was going to happen, it could not be clearer.
Charlie Hebdo, you used the word lone wolf. It's exactly that. It was much more nebulous. It was much more sort of ad hoc in the sense of the operation, the way it was carried out. But you're absolutely right. This was, and I used the word before, meticulously planned. This has a level of sophistication that brings it to a much higher level. In the statement in which the Islamic State group claims responsibility, and look, the fact that it's claiming responsibility, we have to take the statement for what it is. It's the statement at this point that we're reporting as the Islamic State claiming responsibility. That doesn't absolutely mean 1,000% beyond doubt that it is totally legitimate, that it isn't still lone wolves. But we could, at this point, looking at that statement, they call Paris the capital of abomination and perversion. They say the two reasons that they carried out these attacks is because A, insults against the Prophet Muhammad, and B, and this is a major point and a major point of difference since the Charlie Hebdo attacks of January, France's involvement and engagement in the airstrikes in Syria, which they began in late September, and there have been a series of those strikes since then. So France has really upped its involvement in the Middle East conflict, especially entering it in the Syrian theater of war, whereas before it only really limited its airstrikes to Iraq.
You allude to the fact, of course, that we are taking at face value this claiming responsibility by the Islamic State, perhaps thinking about when it came to the downed Russian airplane in Egypt. People were much more cautious about taking for real their claims of responsibility. The big difference, though, is that whilst al-Sisi was very cautious, this is probably not terrorism, the Egyptian authorities very keen to distance themselves from the idea that it may have even have been them. François Hollande said it first.
Right there.
He went, and the first thing he said, this is clear, this is who it is. Perhaps almost a way of saying, we're not going to be intimidated. You're going to do this. We know who you are, and we will not let you.
Absolutely, this was a statement, and not just we opened with him talking about an act of war. This was a declaration of France's resolution and intent, essentially, because what he had said earlier is he says we are not just defending our country, France, but we are also defending the values of humanity.